this might hurt. This might offend some people, and you might want to wait till you specifically address Jeremiah. But would you be willing to comment on, say, Jeremiah 29:11
I know it's coming. I
as,
knew it was
as a
coming.
case study on context and how we apply a sentence to our life?
Yeah. So if this was classroom, I would ask the class, and they probably could use the raise hand function. Maybe we should even try that. Which, of course, sorry you people on YouTube, but you can put a comment in the comment section. How many of you have ever been given Jeremiah 29:11, either in a prophetic word, or somebody writes you, sends you a card with a verse, or in any which way somebody has given you Jeremiah 29:11, and that's the verse that says, "My plans for you." Should we read it, Daniel? Just so you have time. We
Let's
already
read.
have 5 people raising their hands. I could put up my hand too. I've got a great story. I don't know if I have time to share it here, because I think my story is legitimate. Anyway,
Okay.
uh, so 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Okay, we got 9 people raise their hands. You include me. That 10. We got 10 people. I'm 11. So that makes us 12. They keep coming in. We have 52 participants currently. There were 60. I don't know where they went. I think some people sign off when we get to the question time. 17 raised hands. So 18. They keep coming in. I know some people are
A lot
probably,
of
they're still,
us. Some of us don't know how to raise hands, and I
that's
want
right.
also want to be just gentle. I know that this word has been profound encouragement to people in
Okay.
painful contexts, but
Okay.
yeah, go for it, Papa.
Yeah. No, I don't know to the person. The number went up and then it went down. So please don't be shy. And I know we're kind of Daniel and I are laughing just because it's a phenomenon. And hopefully I'm gonna make everybody feel okay, because there's the legitimacy and the illegitimacy of how this verse is used. And so I'll try to explain. So the context of that verse is Jeremiah is living in the time at the just before the temple is destroyed. A horrible time period. The book of Lamentations speaks about that. And so he's living in a very terrible time in the history of Israel. Many people have already been exiled, and God calls him to write a letter to the Jewish exiles in Babylon. And he tells them to live a normal life, build houses, marry, have kids, because God's going to bring you back. So just, don't sweat this. God is judging us, but he's going to restore us. And he assures them, God is saying through Jeremiah, my plans for you are good. It's not for evil. This is not going to be your, it is not going to end in total destruction. This will lead to restoration. Very encouraging. That's the context. Now, what I'm going to do briefly is I'm going to tell you my story and how it fits in with the context, and then I'll explain why this verse can be taken out of context legitimately. And so it goes like this. I was at a conference back in 1985, which I guess now feels like a long time ago. And I was being prayed for by some people about some things. It was a wonderful conference in Vancouver. And it was lunchtime, and I missed lunch. People were praying for me during that time. And a lady from the South came by. People had come from all over the place to this conference. About 3,000 people. There are lots of people. And she I know she's from the South because she wanted to get to her seat while we were still praying, and she said, "Excuse me," in her accent. I didn't do it very well, and so she was sitting a few seats away, and people were praying for me rather intensely. And at some point, she says, "Excuse me, I don't really know what you're praying about, but I feel the Lord has a word." And the word was Jeremiah 29:11. She might have read it, and at the time, I remembered. At the time, I thought, there's more to this than what she's saying. Now, in my own journey and understanding about the future of the people of Israel and the plan of God, I came to the Lord in 1976. This is 9 years later, 1985. I believe the statement in Romans chapter 1 where Paul says the gospel was to the Jew first and also to the Greek or the Gentile. I thought that was historical. Start with the Jews and then go to the rest of the world. Jews could still be included, but that's really all that meant. Later on, I would come to see that there's this Jewish priority in the gospel, that there is a sense in which the gospel has a fundamental Jewishness about it. And that has to do with the centrality of Israel and the plan of God. I'm giving you a lot at once. But I wasn't there yet. I wasn't there at all at that time. I thought Jewish people needed Yeshua, Jesus, just like anybody else. We're just one of the many people on the planet. And so when she said the verse, I thought there's more to this. And so I went home for dinner that afternoon. I was really tired. It was a week-long conference, and I was lying on the couch getting ready for dinner. And I thought, oh, the verse, I should look up the verse. That I want to see the context. So I open it up, and I see it's the letter to the exiles in Babylon. And as I'm reading this, all of a sudden it hit me. God's going to do it. And the it that he's going to do is God is going to save the people of Israel just like his word actually said. And it just hit me. Now, since then, I've studied it. I hadn't studied it as I should have, but her inspired, call it, offering of that verse to me showed me the scriptural truth that God is still faithful to his promises to the people of Israel. And so for me, I didn't even think of it in terms of how it related to me personally. I simply thought of it as God's going to save my people. Now, so then what? So, some of you have been in meetings and somebody will stand up and they'll say, here's what God is saying to us, and quote that verse. The sad part is the context. For most people, the context has been forgotten. That first and foremost, that's a word to the people of Israel, that God is not going to neglect us forever. He will restore us to himself. That's the context. But when anybody from any nation comes to know the God of the people of Israel, that's the nature of that God. And God, when we're going through difficult times, that's not the last word. God will often bring or allow difficult times into our lives to bring us to that place of restoration. We know in Romans 8:28, Paul says, God causes all things to work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. It's possible, it was Paul's understanding of God's chesed, his covenant faithfulness and love to the people of Israel, that he knows that when anybody comes to know that God, that's what he's like. And so in that sense, if you've been given Jeremiah 29:11, you can keep it. But please also remember that it's found in a particular context. It's not just about you and me as individuals, but about God's plan for the Jewish people.
Thanks, Dad.